Hello, friends and fellow seekers of the good, true, beautiful. It's Mike here, and this is Identity Matters. I absolutely love coaching and I love the work I get to do with people. And there have been so many different massive revelations that I've had as I've learned about all the different modalities and all the different research that has to do with change theory and how people grow and how people and relationships grow and how teams and systems grow. And one of the ones that I came upon pretty early in my coaching practice that has transformed everything about the way I think about life is one that I want to share with you here. And it's called the stages of adult development. Now, this comes out of some research that was collated, coalesced, brought together by the Leadership Circle. It's an organization that does a lot of leadership development work. They do a 360 program called the Leadership Circle 360. I am certified in that work. I've been doing it for years. I do it with leaders and with teams. It is hands down, my opinion, of course, but I think I'm right, the most powerful transformative 360 that's out there for leaders and for teams. And I have loved working with both leaders and teams around this instrument. And one of the reasons is because it is built on this research around the stages of adult development. Now, we all understand, I think we all understand, the idea of childhood development, the idea that when you're a little kid, you go through different stages of development. You go from infant to toddler to young kid, kid to older kid, then you're a teenager, then you're a young adult, and then you become an adult. What most people, including me when I came into coaching, did not understand is that process of development does not stop. At least it does not have to stop once you come into your full adulthood. Once your brain is fully formed at 25, you are not then static. You can continue and should continue to grow and develop and become more and more of a mature human being. So what I'm going to share with you today are the 4 stages. There are actually 5, but there are 4 that really center around the adult part of your life and how you develop from one stage to the next as you come into maturity as an adult. Some of this might actually be shocking to you, and we'll talk about why as we get into it, but I'll just go through them briefly, and I'll give you something too at the very end that you can take and read up on it some more if you're interested. So each stage is identified by a name and a question. And the reason it's got a question is because each stage is really governed by a dominant question that sort of runs your life. And I'll give you an example just from the first stage I want to talk about, which is really stage 2. We're not going to talk about stage 1 because it happens for most people, not everybody, but for most people it happens when you're much younger. But stage 2 is called the reactive stage. And the dominant question of that stage is, what is the problem and how do I solve it? And what that really means, what do I mean by dominant question, is that when you get up in the morning and you start looking at your day and you go into your day, that the primary framework by which you engage the world is through that question. You are looking for some kind of a problem, some kind of a thing that's out of alignment, something that is not working that you can fix, solve, or resolve. It is a way of trying to create a comfort zone around your life and then to maintain that comfort zone. So in the parlance of the Leadership Circle, they call it playing not to lose. So it's really like, I have this space, I want to maintain this space, I want to try to keep my peace. And so I'm looking for fires to put out, I'm looking for problems to solve. And I go through my life in that way. Now, just as I described that, it probably occurs to you that most businesses, many at least, communities, and a lot of people that you know, this is the way they go through their life. And since I work a lot with leaders, I even hear this quite a lot from leaders where they'll say, well, that's what leadership is. Leadership is solving problems. And yet, there are 3 more stages of development beyond this one. And that's where it starts to come as a shock that actually, yeah, you can lead, you can have a life where you're just reacting all the time. You're trying to maintain your comfort zone all the time, and that's the big thing you're up to. And you can get through life that way. it is not where you're supposed to end up. It is not the end game of being a human being. It is actually a step, an early step along the process of becoming something more, something deeper, something richer than that. So that stage is called the reactive stage. And the question is, what is the problem and how do I solve it? When you get to a certain point where that's no longer satisfying to you, you might start to slip into, and hopefully will, start to slip into the next stage, which is called the creative stage. And this stage is dominated by a simple question: what do I want to create? So in this stage, if that becomes the dominant question that guides you through life, you get up in the morning and yeah, you still have the same problems, you still have the same challenges, you still have the comfort zone that's there, but you're looking at life through a completely different lens. The lens you're looking through is, I don't just want to maintain my comfort zone. I want to create something. I want to make something happen. I want to shift the world a little bit. And in doing that, I actually don't want to stay in my comfort zone. I actually want to get out of it. I want to move into discomfort. Or what they say in the work is, I want to step into creative tension. I want to get uncomfortable for the sake of creating something that I want to create. This kind of way of living is, as you can tell, much more satisfying, fulfilling, much more expansive, much more developmental even. Like you can't help but grow and change and become something greater, deeper, richer than you have been before if you are living most of the time in the creative stage. Now, of course, things will happen like, you'll have a wreck, like say a fender bender someday, or one of your kids will get sick, and it will be very natural to slip back into the reactive stage. That's perfectly normal. It's not unusual for that to happen. The point is not that you just always stay in the creative stage. The point is that that's your home base. So you slip back into reactive to deal with a problem, restore peace, and then go back to creative. Okay, now what do I want to create? You may even know this. In fact, I'll put this in a card up above, but I did another video here on Identity Matters about reactive versus creative. And I don't know if I really said it overtly at that stage, at that point, but I was really referencing these two steps in adult maturity and adult development. So creative stage, stage 3, and the dominant question is, what do I want to create? And then, and one other thing I want to say about that, both of these stages are, even though the second stage is the third stage, creative is much better, stronger, richer than stage 2. It is still egocentric. It is still about me, mine, and all my stuff. It's what I want to create. And so there are some businesses, some organizations, some communities that dominate or are dominant in the creative stage, but they are still egocentric, meaning that the people that are in them are still ultimately thinking about what's going to serve them, not anything beyond that. So as long as whatever we're doing cohesively together, whatever we're collaborating on is serving me, then I will stay in it, all right? But there comes a point where if you continue to grow, you begin to realize that the things that you want to create in the world, you simply cannot do by yourself. And it actually isn't as fulfilling to do it by yourself. And then you start to slip into stage 4. And stage 4 is called the integral stage. And the dominant question of the integral stage, and just listen how different this is. The dominant question of the integral stage is, what are we here to do in service of the world? What are we here to do in service of the world? It is such a different question than what do I want to create? You can tell already that one of the big shifts from stage 3 to stage 4 is that you move from me to we. Because once you slip into or move into stage 4, to the integral stage, you no longer want to be a solo act. You want to operate in a collective. You want to be part of a team. You want to be part of a community. And your ego is no longer the dominant thing that's driving you. It's not that you don't still have an ego. It's not that you don't still want things for yourself. Of course, you still want things for yourself, but it's not the primary story anymore. The primary story is we are up to something that is about to shifting something in the world for the better. And that is about this bigger question of what are we here to do in service of the world. So you can imagine what would be different about someone who gets up every morning and the dominant question that comes to their mind is, wow, what are we here to do in service of the world today? That's very different from what is the problem and how do I solve it, or what do I want to create. And when you meet someone who lives in this stage most of the time, they have a very different energy, a very different presence. They have a very different sense of connectivity with other people. It's not, again, that they don't have any sense of themselves or they don't have any desires for themselves, but they understand that we are all in this together. And if we don't come together, the thing that we collectively need will not happen. That's why they call it integral. It's the idea that we are becoming aware of the fact that we are all connected, we're all integrated together. And the more that we can recognize that and begin to work in an integrated fashion, the more good, transformative, beautiful change will happen in the world. So that is stage 4. And then I'm going to tell you about stage 5. And stage 5 probably is going to blow your mind a little bit. So stage 5 is called the unitive stage. So 4 is integral, so we're beginning to see connection. Stage 5 is the unitive stage. And stage 5, interestingly, no longer has a dominant question. All the questions fade away. And the reason they fade away is because the connection, the distance between you and the other, whoever is around you, disappears. And you become the same as them, and they are the same as you. There's a unity of awareness about how we all belong to each other at a very fundamental level. I'll give you an illustration and a story about this to help explain it, to maybe help it make sense. It's a little hard for a lot of us to understand because not many of us live in this world. But in the unitive stage, Mother Teresa, when she was still with us on the earth, she came to America once and she gave some talks, and people often asked her the question, how do you keep up your spirits? How do you keep up your courage? Back in Calcutta, in the streets of Calcutta, where every day she was spending her time with people who were in terrible conditions, terrible physical condition, actively dying and just suffering, just surrounded by suffering. And she was in it day in and day out and bringing other people in to also just be with the dying. And no one was caring for these people. It was just her and her team, and they just were there to be with them and comfort them as they died. And people were asking her, where do you find the strength to just do this day in and day out on the streets of Calcutta all the time? And her response was very interesting because she said, it was just such a ridiculous question. and of course that is, to most of us, it's not a ridiculous question, but to her it was. And I would argue it was ridiculous because she was living most of the time in the unitive stage. Let me give you a story that may explain why it seemed like it was ridiculous to her. If you went down the street, let's say you're walking down some sidewalk somewhere, and you happen to step on a really sharp piece of glass and it cut through your shoe and into your foot, and you started to bleed, right away you would no doubt take off your shoe, find some bandage, get some kind of disinfectant. You would immediately move to treat that wound and take care of your wounded foot. You just would. It would be automatic. You wouldn't think about it. You would rush to do it as quickly as possible. How strange it would be if people started coming up to you and saying, wow, that's just amazing how you just cared for yourself like that. How How did you find the strength to just tend to your foot like that? Why would you, how do you endure that? How do you keep up your compassion in that way, to just keep caring for your foot like that? You see what I mean? It just sounds silly because obviously you would, because it's your foot. But for Mother Teresa and for anyone in the unitive stage, everyone else's foot is their foot. Everyone else's pain is their pain. Everyone else's suffering is their suffering. There is no distinction and no difference. We are all together as one. That's the unitive stage. And it is when Jesus even said, to love your neighbor as yourself, the greatest commandment, to love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. I think this is what he was talking about. Jesus, another example of a unitive guy. So unitive, not many people get there, but some of us do. They get to that unitive stage. And what is, I think the most important thing to notice about this is that unitive is the pinnacle of human development. It is what we're actually aiming for. It is when you actually come into your own as a fully formed, mature human being. That's where you end up. You end up in a place where you don't have any questions anymore about what kind of thing you're trying to solve. You're not trying to solve anything. All you're doing is you're bringing your transformational presence to the world. You're accepting what is, and you're bringing love and compassion to those around you. That is what it's about. And we all know that. We all know that deep in our hearts. We all know that love is really what everything's about. But the unitive folk and a lot of the integral folk understand that that's the point, So here's what I leave you with, and then I'll tell you about that thing you can read. I leave you with this. Ask yourself the question, which one of these questions do you spend the most time with every day? Where's the problem and how do I solve it? What do I want to create? What are we here to do in service of the world? No doubt you touch on all of them at different points, but where do you camp out most of the time? And what does that say to you about what's possible? About where you can still go? About how much more landscape, how much more territory there is for you to explore as a human being? And what do you want to do about that? Because my admonition to you, my challenge to you, is that there's more to being a human being than any of us have experienced so far. And it is worth pursuing. It is worth pursuing. I watch it every day with my clients, and I'm very excited about helping people, including me, continue to go down that track, continue to go down that road of becoming a fully formed, mature human being. I've written an article, an essay, a PDF about this. It's targeting teams, and it also includes some more research done about groups of people. I'll include a way to get that in the link below. I think you'll have to sign up to receive the Identity Matters, and then I'll figure out a way for you to get this article if you want to read up more about it. But that's what I want to share with you today, and I just want to say thank you for listening. Please share this video with someone else who you think might be interested in it. Please leave a comment. It helps to support the channel when you do that. And yeah, think about where you want to grow next. That's it for today. I can't wait to see you on the next Identity Matters. Have a good one, guys.